Mic test, mic test. Seems to be working. And the chat is also here, cool. Let me close this up. Hey, Frode, how are you doing?
Oh. I'm good, thank you.
This is live on YouTube, just so you know.
Yeah, my first live stream. Cool.
Very cool. I asked Sindre about it, and it was Yeah, no, it was fine. So
Yeah.
and
It's
it's also
on YouTube anyway, so
yeah, and the account is already there, and then so it will be instantly available on the Imba YouTube channel.
So if I play it in the background, we get a view as well as me being on the meeting. Oh my god.
Right now we have one concurrent viewer.
That would be me.
Oh, okay, I see. Nice. Thanks.
Hey.
Hey, Sindre, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm having a tea. I'm relaxing from a workout. So
nice. Are you still doing the stairs?
Yeah, I was actually. I will send you a video in a DM. So
do that.
Yeah, it was very good actually, but it's cold.
Yeah.
We are live on YouTube, by the way, just so you know.
Okay, that's nice.
And it's
that's
working.
Quite cool. Is it just streaming live and then being recorded for later?
Yeah. So actually, there are a couple of features. Let me just admit there. So it's streaming directly. There's going to be a VOD, a recording for this stream, but you can also during the stream just add stream markers, which I'm going to do. And then so we can use that for timestamps and stuff like that, or we can create a highlighted video or edit this one down later. Also possible. Yeah, it's very nice, and it's a web application. Everything is in dark mode also, if you prefer that. That's the default. I'll add a screenshot.
I have so many issues. Let me see.
Hey, you, Loris.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New
Year.
New Year. Yeah, I'm spamming you, Sindre.
Huh?
If you have issues.
You're cleaning up some issues?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Nice.
We're almost down 100 or half of the issues.
That's good.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm not sure. Do you know if anyone else are going to join? Maybe Bohuslav?
I can ask him. How about Nathan? Is he coming?
I'm not sure. I thought he would, but I haven't seen him online in a few days, so we'll see.
Actually, I don't know his username on Discord.
It's it's Trafnar, but he's not online, so I guess like he's gonna join if it's available, I guess.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, the meeting notes are there, and just shuffle around anything. We added a build demo as the first topic, and
yeah, I'm not even sure the other topics that we keep moving to the next meeting and the next meeting. I'm not sure it makes sense to go through those in detail. Because I just haven't really prepared for it. I think we should have some more examples and discussions around the class field watching syntax and stuff. We could do that if we have time, but for now, I think it's most important probably to just go through the Imba build stuff and even do some brainstorming around it, because I talked to Loris quickly earlier today, and it's been through a lot of iterations now and restarts. So it's really getting there, but there is a lot of mess left over from all the all the restarts. So I need to clean up and also have some other pairs of eyes looking at the CLI commands and the options and stuff like that.
I will be able to look. I will be able to look at the commands and all of that, and just waiting for the dust to settle a little bit.
Yeah, you should wait. But I'm looking forward to it. Cool. Should we wait for anyone else, or should we just?
Yeah, we should just start. Do you want me to stop sharing my screen if you want to take over?
Yeah, probably.
Stop sharing. Let's see.
See.
Hopefully it still works. Yeah, it looks good.
I can share my screen. So you can see my screen now?
Yeah, I see it.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Let's see, I should probably get some code examples up. Let me see here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good. There.
So I can make this full screen. So is the font size okay?
Font size is great. Thanks.
Okay,
Yep,
cool.
good.
Yeah. So I could just go through it really quickly. First, it started with Euloris creating a ESBuild plugin for Imba, and ESBuild, like Imba. What did you call it again? ESImba?
Correct.
Yeah. And I started looking into that, and I started playing around with ESBuild myself, and I went into a deep rabbit hole, as I always do, trying to like take the concepts out of ESImba and into the main Imba library. And then it ended up in a long round of iterations to trying to basically change the way we run code in Imba in general, not just for building stuff for the client, but just when you write Imba and a script, just change the way we actually compile and bundle things and run them, both on the server and on the client. So using ESBuild in the background there for almost everything. And since ESBuild is so crazy fast, and since it supports things like importing assets, SVGs, CSS files, all of those things, we get a lot of cool features relatively cheaply. And I also added like some nice ways to actually use that in Imba itself. So just to start, here's a simple example. You can see the server here. It's basically just a simple file, imports Express, creates an Express app, adds an endpoint, a random like route. We can come back to that. And I just add a catch-all route here. It's essentially like a catch-all index HTML if you have use history API for your application. But essentially like every route that doesn't match post subscribe will get here, and it will simply just render an HTML document. But as you see here, it renders an HTML with a head, blah, 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 and a body. And inside of the body, it has a script with type module and src, which points to a relative path that points to an actual Imba file. So it points to this file right here, like up one level, up from servers into examples and inline SVG. So this is the kind of the Imba file that we refer to in the script type module here. And we listen to, we start the server essentially on end port if that variable is set, or on 3000. I'll get back to the Imba serve later, but that's very important here. But what this means is now I have a single file. And if I go to the command line here, I can run that file using the Imba command. So this is one of the things Euloris is going to help me with. There's a crazy amount of weird weird commands here that are not really thought through, and they are really still in development mode. So, but if I just run Imba-W for watch and the script, which is servers Express API, now it started that server. And the insane thing about this is that it actually started that server. It found the entry points, like the path to the inline SVG here. It compiles this one. It imports the SVGs. It hashes them and saves them so they are unique across deployments and developments. And it also creates a CSS file mapped to the client, etc. All of this happens essentially instantly. And this is, so now I'm not minimizing them. You see that the main, this is the main client file here. It's 30.9 kilobytes. It includes the Java, the Imba runtime, which is now also being tree shaken. So anything that is not used from the runtime is essentially removed from a build. If I minify it, which you would usually do in production, it takes the same amount of time. Now you see that it's 16.9 kilobytes. So using ESBuild in the background is actually so fast that there is no longer any difference between the production server and your development server, because it's essentially instant to even build all your entry points and your server in one command. So you will never, there won't ever be things like you should first run Imba build blah blah blah, then run webpack something, and then run the server. You will always just run your server through the Imba command.
Will it handle
And now
modules
I'm
coming in
listening.
with both? Oh, will it handle
What?
modules coming in with both import and require?
Yes. So it's since it's using ESBuild, it's you can define your formats if you want to use ESM or CommonJS, etc., and it compiles, yeah, to the different formats. There are still some things left to be decided, like how would you easily be able to, in your server here, support both ESM modules and fall back to CommonJS, etc. But the foundations are there, and it's really easy to support them because, yeah, it's supported in ESBuild. So if I go to this server here, let's see. You can see, I can try to bring it up. This is the file. You will see first, I just import an actual like plain reference to a CSS file, which is here in assets preflight, which is a regular CSS file. That's imported nicely and just included in the bundled CSS. We also import some, so this is a relatively advanced example just to show how the import stuff works. Here I have an icons object. I import two actual SVG icons here. Open maps to columns SVG, which is here. It's just random. I tested earlier today. Close maps to copy. And I have a bunch of items here. Yeah, this as always, it becomes quite chaotic, but we'll just try to please ask questions if something is unclear, and then it will be easier for me to explain it along the way. You can see here that in SVGs, you can use an SRC attribute. So for scripts, you can do SRC, like script blah blah blah, some relative path to an Imba Imba file. Will actually bundle it and create it as a client endpoint. If you do the same with an SVG tag, you will actually get an inlined version of that SVG content in your code. So one thing is you want to have an image. Like if I wanted to have an actual image here, I guess I could do just image SRC. Let's hope this works. It's also reloaded because it's, yeah, it's actually reloading styles instantly. If you see here, if I change the colors or whatever. And it also reloads the client if you actually change the JavaScript code on the client. But another cool thing is that it even reloads your server, like behind the scenes. If you change some endpoint here, let me see, I submit. Let's see, it's in the log here, you see handle formal server, blah, blah, blah. If I change that to handle something, you will see now that it has actually restarted the server. And it uses, when you're in development mode, it actually uses a node cluster to start a new version of the server while the old one is running. And while it's starting the new one, it is pausing the old one and just keeping all the connections live until the new one is online. And then it flushes the connections to the new server so that you won't ever get like 500 not found or whatever it is when you refresh.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's really good for development. But yeah, back to the main thing here. If you see the code here, if I do img src blah blah blah, you will see in the code here that it is actually compiled as an image element within src, mapping to the unique like hashed bundled SVG asset for that specific SVG. But if you look at the one above, where we have SVG src blah blah blah, it has actually included inline the contents of the SVG you're referring to. And that's really powerful because that allows you to style the SVGs in a very different way than you can do if you import them as images. So like for these, you will see that the color changes here. That doesn't sound too great because you probably use the font icons and stuff, but it's very difficult to do that with SVGs directly because then you will have to move them into the code because you can't style the color inside of SVGs from CSS or from image tags. And you can also do cool things like, yeah, in this case here, you see I have the 3 items and they have states. And when I loop over the items here, I actually just set the SRC of the SVG to icons dot icon state. So if an item here has the state open, it will look up icons open. And here you see I've imported that SVG for that. So these imports are extremely versatile and powerful. And you can also, if I have an image here, let me see. Yeah, I have a logo, like logo PNG, which is the Imba logo. I can just in my code do logo, import assets, logo, PNG. If I do that, you will see when I console log it, it is actually a proxy object with some additional magic, but it even includes like the size of the asset that you have imported. So that also allows you to do naturally really cool things. Like you could override the SRC equals here for images to also inline set the width and height of the image so that you don't get like changing layout when your images finally load and stuff. Another cool thing about this is that also if you actually do code splitting, or if your client entry point here imports other client entry points, and you actually code split them into multiple output files that you can do with ESBuild, like out of the box, then we also have full control over all the dependencies of all the files, so that we can automatically include link preload headers, either as headers of the actual request or as link preload tags in the head to tell the browser all of the dependencies within the clients that are loaded, which will eventually be loaded, so that you will get much faster loading of large sites.
Is it supporting Imba router yet? Are we supporting Imba router yet?
It's partly supported. I think it's working in some examples I have. So we're going to fix the rest of it, but yeah. So the thing Imba Serve does is it essentially injects a really, really tiny middleware into your plain server. So you could use Express, or you could just create an HTTP2 server or a Koa server or whatever. As long as you pass the .listen, the result of whatever .listen into Imba Serve, it will take care of injecting the middleware that returns assets and listens and hooks up hot module reloading and those things. And it's actually like, it's extremely fast. So I think it will, you can run your apps behind Nginx or something. It's probably a good idea in many cases, but the sending the assets that we build will be faster, I think, via Imba Serve, because we can do all these things with the dependencies and set the right headers and the right caching, so you don't have to think about it at all. Let me see, where were I? So yeah, that's one of the things. Let me see. There's also the usual case where you just want something that is completely client-side. You don't want to have to set up your own like Express or Koa or HTTP server to use it. For that, there is one other command. So instead of doing the server now, if I just go to examples, and I wanted to run the inline SVG example or the basics thing here, which is essentially the same. If I wanted to run that without having to care about setting up a server, I could just do imba serve basics, and then it started that as a plain server, which also supports hot module reloading and styles and all of that. So yeah, it's the nicest thing about this is that it works for these small examples, but even for large applications, it works incredibly well. So I could, this is doomed to fail, I guess, but for Imba.io, I have the server.imba. I just do Imba watch server now. Let's hope it works. In that time, which is like, I'm not sure, 300 milliseconds, you can see it actually built like a service worker that includes the whole Imba compiler. It bundled a bunch of assets like an SVG, 2 SVGs. It had an Imba worker for the code editor for Monaco, which also includes, let me see, view, no, not full screen. Let me see. So it bundled a Imba worker, which also compiled the whole Imba compiler and the whole client itself. And this also should be, I hope, fully, let's see, I need to find the Imba.io, there it is. Let's see if I go to, yeah, let's just go to the front there and change the, change the OpenIDE, remove the exclamation point. And this is also live reloaded. So that's pretty insane. Even like inside of this building, it even compiles 5 TypeScript files that are included in the Imba tooling, in the Imba/program Monarch stuff. So most of this is due to just how insanely fast ESBuild is. And then we have had to work around quite a few issues and both bugs and just missing features from ESBuild, but most of those are going to come along nicely. And yeah, it's really great. I can show you quickly, even with code splitting. I had an example here where I just, it's very basic. It's again, essentially the same example, but as you see here, I add a load method to AppRoot where I await import dashboard.imba, and then I mount the app dashboard tag. And if you go to dashboard.imba, you see that it's just a tag and a setup method that I don't even use now. So I can try to run that as without the real server, just imba serve code splitting. Then you will see that it has not loaded. It has loaded the code splitting CSS. It has loaded the code splitting JavaScript and a common chunk shared between code splitting and dashboard. And that is most of the Imba library, I think, which is 20 kilobytes here. If I press load, you'll see that they also loaded the dashboard stuff, which again depended on the same chunk that was already loaded by code splitting. And then it added and mounted the dashboard. So this works in small projects, and it also works in big projects like the Scrimba site. So the Scrimba site took, I think, more than 5 seconds just to start. And now it takes less than 400 milliseconds to build and bundle the server and all the client-side entry points. So it's, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It is amazing. Really, it's flabbergasted.
And also it's again, this also works with, like, if I do bg url assets logo.png, so you can now actually use like relative URLs both in the CSS and in the Imba files directly to refer to real assets on in your project. And again, all of these are also bundled as hashed assets that change when the assets change, the CSS files will change, so that you can do like never caching, forever cache all the assets essentially, because they will always change the paths if they become invalid. I think this might not work, so pardon if it doesn't, but I even think you can. Like you have icons open here. No, icons, let's see, part import. It needs to be more fancy than that. Let me see. I think you can even do like, instead of having SVG here, let's see if I can, in all the divs, do BG and just interpolate. Ooh, yeah, it works. So you need, here I've imported an SVG asset into the Imba file, and I'm dynamically referring to some specific thing as a background in the CSS, and it compiles to, you see here that it ends up setting a CSS variable referring to the asset that again is injected into the style sheet.
This is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
It looks great.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So I see from the chat, people are asking when we can start using it. So can we start using it tomorrow?
I hope so. It's merged back into master, but I have some cleanup I need to do because I've changed where we actually compile the dist files for Imba and stuff. But it's not going to be a big job. The goal is definitely to get it out tomorrow. If not as an alpha, I think it's going to be an alpha. But if not, at least so that you can just fetch from the repo and do it from there. So one of the things I'm still struggling with is now I've come to rely on Imba as being a global install, like npm install g Imba. We could do it if we require people to install it in the project, but I just feel that there's much more friction there if you actually always need to make sure that you install Imba in the project, and then you can't just do Imba, you would need to do it as npm scripts, right? Or node modules, bin, Imba, blah, blah, blah. It just feels better like Node having Imba as a global command, just like Node. And then when you run, let's say you are here and you run Imba servers express, then it should, right now, it only runs it through the global Imba, but it should then see if you have an Imba version installed in Imba templates, then it should like proxy everything to that installed version, or tell you that there are discrepancies between your global Imba and the npm packaged Imba. There are quite a few things that we do need to resolve, I think. And also,
there will also be quite a lot of documentation required. I mean, you're showing one feature after the other. It's amazing.
Yes. And there's very little documentation right now. You can also, just to add some more, if you want to start it as a cluster, you obviously can do that. So if I do with watching, I now started 3 versions of this. And again, if you change anything on the server here, let me see, it should then do the nice thing of actually stalling the old servers and stalling the requests coming to the old servers and waiting for the new versions to go live, and then proxying the connections through to the new versions. So this looks very much like a kind of a toy dev server thing, but the idea here is that you get hot module reloading, you get everything without spawning, without having like a dev server like you do in Webpack and your real server. You do everything through your real server, and Imba will inject a few tiny things to do HMR and dev stuff when you want that. But even the cluster modes here, the goal here is to encourage you to actually use those in production, because it is easier for us to allow that than like we use PM2 for our servers on Scrimba, and the graceful reloading there is actually quite complicated, and it doesn't really work well when you need to wait for the new server, and yeah, there are a lot of cases. So the goal here is to let people use this both for production and for development without really having to think about whether you're using development or production.
How would we approach static site?
Huh?
How would we approach static site generation?
Yeah, that's one thing that's kind of missing. The one command that I still haven't finished, but it shouldn't be that difficult, is to allow you to essentially create have just an Imba build command as well that also generates or takes in an HTML entry point and generates just a folder with all the client files and the HTML that is needed for it. So yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, there is no security right now between client and server, correct?
What do you mean security?
Any kind of secure handshake, cookies, or anything else related. It's not just the transport, but also the handshaking. I mean, ensuring that the server is the server and the client is the client. That there's no man in the middle or similar things.
But that's a problem you have in any web server, isn't it? Like this is just I'm actually just creating an Express server here, just with the middleware that serves some assets. So there's or are you talking about just adding HTTPS or?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, as a development server on my own machine, it's probably fine, but in production, I'm just wondering if there are some security related aspects that have to be taken into account.
Yeah, I think for serving the assets, at least I think we should have some thorough walk through how we need to make sure it's not possible to get the server assets or whatever. Like the server itself is compiled into a JavaScript file. Obviously, that can't be accessible through the through the client.
Yeah,
there are a few things like that, but it shouldn't be that many issues. But definitely, we need to go through it thoroughly.
Okay, another question is, you made a difference between SVG files and the other assets. SVG is taken directly inline, whereas the other assets are loaded still as external resources. There would still be a possibility of loading the other assets also inline with some base64 coding or similar.
Yes, that should be possible, but I'm not sure how we want to do that, if we want to do that as part of some configuration now, or if we just want to do the simple way where you just say something like data URL or data or something.
For example, yeah, or also just to have a similar approach to all assets.
Yeah, but it's kind of the similar approach to all of them now, even if the SVGs are special because they're also parsed to be able to use as inline SVGs. But both of them, like you can have logo.url and icons open URL. And I'm not on that server now, so let's see. Is this the server? If you see the console, you'll see that it actually all the assets respond with the URL to the asset.
Yes.
That should also work. Now I'm getting kind of ahead of myself, but let's say we have a worker of some sorts here. We have.
I'm seeing an error message here in Zoom, so hopefully it doesn't kick us out. I'll try not to click the message. But
okay.
I've gotten an error message. You have been signed out because your account is signed in another device. So
okay.
I'm not going to click anything. So hopefully it just goes over.
Yeah. So now I created a worker. Again, this is now we're getting to some of the experimental things here. I think if I'm in the code here, I could even do let worker import dot worker. This is syntax is something we need to discuss, Loris, to get right. Load worker. I'll see if that. Yeah, so it actually bundles and creates the worker, and then lets me like worker. Yeah, that's reset. Goes to worker. So this would be a way to actually run. Now I'm actually running a worker that I created here in Imba.
Wow.
And imported
Wow.
it directly from the client.
Another question, will you make available all these example files in some repository?
Yeah,
we would love to have some starting base that compiles just out of the box before we start playing around with the different options.
And the plan was to start with this or a similar project where we have, the cool thing is now, since we can actually just do Imba, serve, and then any client code, it makes it much easier now to create a ton of different examples in one directory, instead of having to build a ton of directories with a server and a client in all of them and stuff. So it should be easy now to create a bunch of examples in a repository and just allow people to see how things work from there.
I think that would also be a great approach for eventually doing the documentation. If somebody, I mean, if you just write a single purpose examples, then it's easy to take that running code and create some documentation around it and integrate it eventually in the documentation side.
Yeah, that's true. I was trying to find this. Let's see. Just as another example, I don't need to show it now, but I also created an HTTPS example, which is just, it actually used Koa and HTTP2 with certificates, just to show how simple that was. I can. Do we have time? Should I just try to?
Yeah, we definitely have time. I think we won't be kicked out as long as I don't touch anything. So 22 more minutes.
So let me see. I created Koa HTTP2. And that example was actually with hydration and server side and client side stuff as well. I haven't come around to explaining that, but I also fixed and improved a lot of the hydration stuff. So now it actually hydrates things in the correct order and automatically removes the server side rendering and replaces it with a client side rendering when applicable. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
Let me see. I have Koa, blah, blah, blah. No longer this. Koa server. Welcome. I'm just going to do the same, like asset examples, basics. And then I had some, let's see.
While you're looking, I have a quick question about decorators.
Yeah.
Are they only applicable to class properties, or can they be used for aspect-oriented programming on ordinary functions? And how
right now they're not even, like, they're so not documented and lacking in features. Like, they only work in a few places. So I even just kind of thought that we should really think about them and introduce them later, like in 2.1 or something. So right now they're very limited. So it might be better to actually take the community and actually create a decent proposal for how we want it to work and include that in later release, I think.
Yeah, because I want to address before, after, and around modifications for the generic function package I'm working on. So I want to make sure that I don't do anything that clashes with the base language.
Yeah, I think there shouldn't be any clashes now. Now I added the certificates here. So I have no idea if this is going to work. Path resolve shouldn't need that first argument, should it? Let's see. I just need to install Koa. Ah, this was not the...
I might just add a very thin, dedicated transpiler layer so that I can experiment with some syntax for the generic functions.
Yeah, that's another very cool thing. It actually now includes source mapping also on the server. So you get, when your code fails on the server, you should even get, if I do a bad script, run not random, I think.
Well, you had random, not random.
Yeah, that was the point.
Oh, that was the point. Got it.
So now, let me see. Just need to change a tiny setting here in the bundler. I just need to make the source map. I'm going to set the source map.
Are you changing that off screen?
Yeah. Yeah, I had to just change it to inline the source map because there's something wrong with the source mapping now, the external source maps, because so now you see that it actually, like, even from Node now, it shows the mapped correct position of the error. So you can just click and get to the position.
Oh, beautiful.
And another cool thing, I'm not sure if many of you experience this often, but I often work on some scripts that I want to rerun all the time when I change them and see the results. So, and not just servers, but just general scripts where I just do some tests or whatever. So now if you actually start a script, not just a server, but any script in watch mode, it will actually rerun the script whenever the input or any of the dependencies of the input changes. So that's a nice way to just iterate on some random small thing you're working on.
That's perfect.
Let me see, where was I? Yeah, the server's Kua. So that's another. So one of the reasons it's so fast. ES build is just incredibly fast. Imba compilation still takes some time, but I'm now using a global cache of the Imba files. So now you see that because I changed the compiler, it had to recache some of the things. So all of these source file from the library itself was recompiled in the global cache. So now if I run it again, it's instant again. So the first time you build some project on some machine, then it will take a little longer than the instant thing. But now it's wrong that it's HTTP. That's okay. That's probably because the certificate is for the local host. Sources. HTML. Okay. I'm not, since I just added this server, I'm not completely sure why it isn't working, but I'll figure that out. But again, yeah, it should be easy to also use development stuff and respond with assets on HTTPS servers as well. And I also think we should make it easy to, in Imba itself or with an Imba command, like you have npm global configs, have some Imba global config thing where you can actually generate a localhost HTTPS certificate using mkcert, at least for Mac and Linux, and then be able to start all your dev servers and like Imba serve commands using HTTPS, because that's so often useful.
Could you show also the configuration options, or where can you store the configuration?
All of the things you've seen now is without any configuration. But you can create, that's something we should discuss and figure out. You can create Imba config files. I can show you. It's all very chaotic still, obviously. Let me see. There are some Imba config files that follow sort of where you can set some default options for node and browser. And also I'm not finished with it, but also some defaults for any default you define, you can essentially in an Imba thing do import dot some name, blah blah blah, and that will create bundles using the import types or namespaces that you define in your configuration. But earlier I've been through so many iterations of using Imba config where you actually list all your entry points and the formats they're supposed to use and stuff. But I ended up removing essentially all of the configuration. And even the targets, like browser targets and node targets, because again, ESBuild can actually compile your code and remove, like convert a weight to ES5 stuff, can convert a lot of new ES6 and ESNext syntax to be compatible to older node and older browsers. But here is it also just instead use the already existing fields in package.json, like browser list and engine, to see like what version of node we should target. I think most of the configuration, it should be possible for even large projects to have little or no configuration. Like I am now running Scrimba, which has a bunch of entry points, a ton of workers and service worker and stuff, and Imba.io without any configuration files. So I think it should be
That is perfect. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, can eval handle Imba source code constructs?
No, it can't. And I think eval is kind of tricky. I have considered a few things like that where we could just on compile time identify eval and do magic with that. The same way I've also considered, like you could also do things like if you have an actual script tag and you do blah 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 document something where it actually takes everything inside the script tags and compile that isolated as it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking in the back of my head.
Yeah, that should be doable. I don't have a pressing need for it right now, so I guess I won't be implementing it for a while. But that should be doable. Or yeah, it is doable, but it's just not a priority just yet. So there are some tricks, like I had some problems with the generated paths. Like the paths are generated nested in the same directory structure that you have in your inclusions. So for service workers, that is kind of bad because the service worker usually needs to exist at the same level, which the scope it wants to take control of. Like if you want to have a service worker intercept requests from your top level, then the service worker script has to reside at the top level as well, or have some special headers set from the server. But I ran into that with Imba.io because there we use a service worker to compile things. So the way I ended up solving it there was actually really simple. So instead, I continued to just refer to a plain JavaScript, a plain string path in the client. And on the server, I actually just created an endpoint that imports the worker here. And then I just send the file with the absolute path of the asset. So that was all I had to do to make that work. And again, I'm still really baffled. Like, this is how fast it starts and compiles everything. Again, now it had to recompile. You'll probably see here it also compiles some TypeScript files. Could not. And that is just start again. So these are not minified now. You see that the service worker is 1 megabyte. If I just add the minification here, now it's minified. And then you can do source maps. And yeah, it's crazy.
So in all these cases, the bundler is running locally on the machine, or did you run the bundler also on the client website?
No, the bundler is always running locally. So that's one of the tough things ahead. That is essentially, if we want to have all the fancy features of it, working on Scrimba on the playground, all of that, then we will need to do some work to get the bundling working. Virtualize the whole file system, stuff like that. Shouldn't be too much work. Maybe you, Loris, want to jump at it at some point. But yeah,
sounds
it's
like a great challenge.
yeah, ESBuild does work on the client, and we have struggled with a really complex and weird npm a webpack mimicking setup in Scrimba, and I would really like to explore the possibility of moving over to using ESBuild for not just for Imba, but for all the types of projects at Scrimba, where we can actually, it's so fast at importing all kinds of npm packages and stuff, and it would be really cool to make that work.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? I think maybe I should stop sharing my screen.
Great demo. I really look forward to trying out this stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm really happy about it. So
cool.
It's
so
very impressive work.
Cool. Thank you.
Definitely.
Congratulations. Job well done.
Thank you. It's still a lot left, I guess, but at least it's come to a place where I'm satisfied with most of the syntax and most of the feeling of it. It felt much better when I managed to remove all the configuration, actually, because it just felt so weird to having to declare all the entry points and all the various workers and stuff in a JSON format, torn away from the rest of the app.
So
It's
regarding the discussions, is that something you can start scheduling with you, Loris, and anyone else who's interested?
Yeah, sure.
Are you gonna document that somehow? I'm guessing, would you like to have it as a private discussion, or could it be recorded?
I think it would be cool if you could show me how you do the live on YouTube recording now. It wouldn't matter for me to just put it out on the Imba. If it's okay for the other people who participate in the stuff. It would probably be kind of chaotic discussions, but it might be interesting for people to be able to look back at. So
yeah, definitely. And for anybody else who has some time zone issues and can't join, it would be good to have the opportunity to watch the recording. We can talk about that offline later.
Yeah.
And I can probably send you some links.
Yeah.
Cool. So the last two topics, I don't know, do we have time for that now? Nathan's design, or what's the status?
I'm not sure if he's prepared for it. I think he's just haven't done a lot on it for a while now, and we talked about maybe getting back to it this week or next week. Just so I guess we should probably delay it. Yeah, nothing to share. This is in the chat.
Oh, and if anyone has any thoughts about generic functions and what they'd like to see in that sort of a package, reach out to me and I'd welcome any input.
Yeah. It's cool.
I'm trying to mirror Dylan's implementation as much as possible.
Feel free to post some stuff in the chat again if you have links to something that would be interesting for us to read up on.
Yeah, and you should, Peter, you should have access to the YouTube live stream. So maybe you can use that or links do work here. Yeah, you can actually post links in the Zoom. Never mind.
Yeah.
Let's see. So yeah, the promo video, that's something Eric was mentioning. He wanted to make a promo video. And this is not exactly related to that, but Frode, Eric was asking about the real world application. And he needed somebody to do the back-end part for that. Is that something you could be interested in? I'll add a link. Let's see.
Okay, just drop my email address in if anyone wants to send me any notes about the generic function topic.
Yeah, that is something I can consider. I'll have to look at the workload for next week or two, but Definitely should get that out. And we should get I haven't transitioned the v2 to maybe the main imba.io site either. So that needs to be done. There was one issue I wanted to check before I did that.
Yeah, and I'm going to tomorrow or the day after to update Imba.io to use the new bundling. So that will also be a decent example for people to see.
Great.
And there are so many things, like there are so many things we can do now with the hot module reloading, like the way that the server can actually push the manifest, like push info about which assets have changed, etc. We can also do things like easily push when the server reloads and fails, or if there are any client-side or server-side errors, we could push that to the client as well to actually, when you're in development mode, like show red error bar at the bottom saying like the server has failed at this line, and do all sorts of cool integrations with that. I'm looking forward to explore that later. So
the Django debug page.
Yeah, essentially.
Just maybe as a way forward, could we also manage some to-do list maybe on Notion? Because I have a feeling that we will have quite many small little tasks popping up, on not only on the documentation side, but also creating examples, showing off different features of the new bundler and so many other things. And we will probably just lose track of them if the only place where these are recorded are in these YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So I think Sindre does have a lot of notes in GitSpeak, and
I think I create 40, 50 notes a day or something in GitSpeak with all sorts of stuff with that, but none of those are public and they're too messy to be public. So we need a shared space to do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a valid point, Loris, but maybe GitHub would be a better place for that. At least like maybe we could look into using milestones and organizing it there, because I don't know, like when I'm thinking about it, it would be better to have it closer to the repository. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but then we need to be disciplined as well.
And it's also easier. It's also easier to manage ourselves, to see which features we would like to deal with before going beta, and which ones we want to kick forward.
Yeah. I think I need to leave, guys. I have some family stuff.
Okay, well, congratulations again. The demo was really fantastic. Impressive, all the features.
Yeah, cool. I'm looking forward to having you try them out. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for taking the time. And so 2 weeks from now, should we try then?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay, perfect.